Cool. Good afternoon, Talia.
Hi, everybody. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Vicki and I did a little test run. So welcome to my presentation, Putting UX into Customer Service. Actually did this presentation at Computers and Libraries earlier this year, and Jessie Riggins from the TBLC office was in attendance, and she asked me to deliver the same presentation to you guys. So I'm happy to be here, and let's talk about putting UX into customer service, something that you're probably pretty familiar with since you guys utilize lib answers, and perhaps you're also other Springshare users, is that we're kind of known in the library world for having really, really great customer service. And people ask us all the time, like, how do you do it? How are you able to, as a library vendor company, how are you able to think about customer service and always putting the user first? So that's what this presentation is all about. Our Springshare model of thinking about the user, thinking about you guys as our users, and putting that into our customer service approach. So first things first, I always like to start with a disclaimer. I am not, nor anybody at Springshare is a UX expert. I have not written or published any books or articles, and you will not see my name anywhere with regards to this topic title. I did a lot of research for this presentation, so that is something I always like to point out. I am not a UX expert, so take things that I say or the Springshare customer service model with a grain of salt. So really quickly, for those of you who are not super familiar with Springshare, you are using lib answers at the TBLC office, but perhaps you're not super familiar with Springshare as a company. Let me quickly explain who we are. So we are a completely virtual company, and we lovingly call ourselves Springies. So you might hear us on our Twitter channel say, oh, you're talking with Springy Talia or Springy Slavin or Chief Springy is our CEO is what he refers to himself. We provide web-based applications, cloud-based apps, and our mission is to develop engaging apps for libraries and educational institutions worldwide. So really quickly, let me tell you about our support team. They are kind of the front runners, the forefront of our customer service approach. So our support team is a three-pronged effort. We have folks that handle support questions that you send in. We handle about 2,000 emails a month. And we have dedicated support shifts that run from 8:30 in the morning to 6:30 Monday through Friday Eastern Time. And last year alone, we answered 26,000 emails in a single year. We do about 20 plus webinars a month. You've probably attended some of our webinars. Our webinars are Monday through Friday. We record all of them. We even have evening webinar series that we perform in the evening hour time that ends up being daytime for Australia, New Zealand, Singapore. And we also have a Springy Camp user conference, which if you haven't registered for, please register for it. We announced registration off of our blog, and if anybody is curious about that, I can send you the link to that. And it's our free virtual user conference, so it's pretty cool. And then, of course, we build out help documentation. So we have about 50 plus help guides, 400 plus FAQs. We do step-by-step documentation. And all of this, by the way, is accomplished by about a dozen Springy team members. And if it sounds familiar to you, it's because it's very similar to what a reference department does in a library. It's very similar. The reference department provides support, they do maybe instruction sessions or workshops, and they put out help guides or FAQs and documentation. So what I always like to say is that we're the reference librarians for librarians. That's what our support team does. All right, so I'm going to cover 8 Springshare principles of putting the user first in your customer service model. Please note that this is not a manual. This is not a policy. This isn't written anywhere. This is basically trends that I've noticed over my 5 years working with Springshare. I started in 2010. So when I noticed these kinds of trends, I organized them into these kind of 8 principles. These 8 principles are not standalone at all. So they're all interconnected, they interlock, and they overlap with each other. So you'll really see a lot of symbiosis between these principles. All right, so let's get started. The first principle that I have is a very, very common UX principle, just a general UX principle, which is about being strategic. So I'll just read this quote. The user experience is strategic. It begins with an idea to improve the lives of users and continues through every moment of the customer lifecycle. It is driven by a vision that guides and justifies every decision. So how are we at Springshare strategic in our customer service approach? So right off the bat, it starts for us at the top down. So that is Slaven Zivkovic. Maybe some of you have met him. Maybe some of you have chatted with him personally. And Slaven is a very hands-on CEO. You can email him directly. He's extremely transparent. And a lot of what Slaven does is when he does have interactions with librarians, with libraries, with customers, he frequently CCs the entire company so that we can all see his interactions that he has with customers as kind of the model. So for us, customer service starts at the top. I wouldn't necessarily say that Slaven has a requirement that when he's looking for Springies to join the Springshare team, that he's looking for people with a high HQ. And for those of you who are not familiar with that term, that stands for hospitality quotient. And basically, people who have a high hospitality quotient are people that take pleasure in providing excellent customer service or excellent hospitality. It's not that they like doing it. It's not that they do it well. It's that they actually get emotional and mental gratification from providing excellent hospitality. So it's not a job requirement, but it is a Springy character trait. And if you look across the entire company and you're chatting with frequent different people on the support team, you'll notice that probably all of them have a really high hospitality quotient. So it's a really interesting character trait that kind of came about as Springshare grew. We are also, it's reinforced absolutely daily that we have a customer first approach. Daily, multiple times a day, and definitely weekly. So this strategy of strong UX really is reinforced constantly and consistently. Another part of the strategy is that every single person in Springshare does support. I'm going to talk more about this later, but really important to know that, that we all do it. So let me talk about some industry leaders that are really, really well known for their customer service. So first we have Craig Newmark. Anybody know who Craig Newmark is? Sound familiar to anybody? Feel free to type it in the chat box if you feel green. Okay, Marie, who's Craig Newmark, if you'd like to share it with the group? No Googling allowed. Anybody know? Marie? Okay, well, I'll put it out there just in interest of time. Craig Newmark is the founder of Craigslist. So, oh, no worry, Marie. So something that you're all very familiar with, maybe you even utilize. So he's the CEO, he's the founder of Craigslist. And when Craigslist kind of blew up and became huge as to what it was, he didn't really like the position that he had, and he became a customer service representative. So his day-to-day operation is he works the customer service of Craigslist, even though he's CEO and founder of the company. Really fascinating. Amazon.com requires every single employee, from the vice presidents to head of finance to the guy who, packages boxes. Everybody has to work at a call center for 1 week a year to do to provide customer service. And at kayak.com, I love this. They have this thing called the red phone. It's not literally a red phone, but basically it randomly selects a customer service transaction that occurred from the previous day, and it emails out that transcript to every single person in the entire company. So at any point in time, your customer service transaction that you had the day before could be the subject of discussion that day, and every single person in the company sees it. So you'll notice that there's a lot of trends here, not necessarily something that we said we're going to model our customer service approach after Craigslist or Amazon or Kayak, but a lot of the things that we do here at Springshare are very similar. For example, CEO of Craigslist does customer service. Slaven, our CEO, he does customer service. Amazon.com, everybody works at a call center. Springshare, everybody does support. And at kayak.com, they have a high level of transparency, and we at Springshare have an incredibly high level of transparency as well. So here's some recommended tips for you about being strategic. First things first, taking it home after today's webinar, asking yourself, what is your value statement and where does customer service really fit in? It is the #1 most important thing here at Springshare. So because it's the most #1 important thing, it is it is extremely highly valued. And asking yourself, what can you do at your library to encourage transparency to improve customer service? Maybe taking a page from the book of kayak.com. All right, let's jump to my second principle of putting UX in your customer service model. This is from Roger Staubach. He's a football coach, and he said, there are no traffic jams along the extra mile. I love this quote. Basically, a study was done by Forbes. A study was done by Tiny Pulse that Forbes reported on. And Tiny Pulse is an employee engagement firm, and they polled 200,000 employees all over the world across 500 different organizations and asked them this question: what motivates you to go the extra mile in your organization? And, do you think it's money? Do you think it's benefits? Do you think it's bonuses? Do you think it's extra vacation time? Do you think it's more maternity leave? And the #1 reason worldwide, so this is not just a United States thing, was that peers and camaraderie are the #1 reason that employees go the extra mile, and not money. So how do we foster peer camaraderie here at Springshare? So a long time ago, Slavin started this initiative called Share Daily Kudos. Basically, he said, for one entire calendar year, if you get a really nice kudos from a customer, they say something really nice about your customer service or something really nice about the company, about Springshare, forward it to the entire company and so everybody can see it. And let's aim to get one really amazing kudos every single day for a single year. This started in 2012, and since 2012, we are still doing it. So we still have like a personal mission that every single day somebody needs to share their kudos with the entire company. So 2 years later, 3 years later, we're still doing it. So why is sharing daily kudos really, really important? And what has it done here at Springshare? So the first thing it has done is it builds a feeling of family. We're all kind of champions for each other. And when you think about providing great customer service, that mindset of, hospitality starts at home, same thing here. Great customer service starts at home too. And providing great customer service to each other is a great way to provide great customer service to the patron. So it fosters a feeling of family, and we're all championing for each other. It also acts as a really strong positive reinforcement. There is absolutely no greater feeling than getting a good job from people you respect. It also encourages a learning experience. If one of my coworkers gets an incredible kudos from a client, I'm going to check out what kind of language she used. Maybe she explained something that's really, really complicated in a really, really easy way, and that's going to inform how I then answer that same question a month from now or 2 months from now. So it kind of raises the level of learning for the whole entire company. And it focuses on the warm and fuzzies. It's really easy to focus on the negative and not on the positive. So we instead tend to focus on the positive and not the negative. And after a really, really long work day and you've answered, you're on your 200th email of the week, it's great to act as a sugar boost and kind of motivate you to not let that 201 email, bring you down. So here's an example of one of my coworkers kind of going the extra mile. And our director of customer service, our director of community engagement, Anna Burke, sent this out to the whole company. So my colleague Val was chit-chatting with one of our clients that is in Sweden, and they emailed us with a problem, but it ended up actually not being our problem at all. It was in fact a problem with their local network setup, firewall setup kind of thing. So Val could have just written back and said, hey, thanks for emailing us, but really this has nothing to do with us, so you should go contact your IT department, bye, and she could have left it at that. But she didn't. She went she went the extra mile. She got them the answer to their question anyway, even though it had absolutely nothing to do with us. And not only that, but she thought like Bobby Fischer, and she thought to the next step, and she got them the answer to them in Swedish. So rather than just giving them the answer, she got them the answer in Swedish. And I know it sounds like a really, really simple thing, but that is what sets apart your customer service from, say, somebody else. So some recommended tips for you about, when you bring this home to your library, how do you encourage your colleagues to go the extra mile? Now that you know that peer camaraderie is a strong motivator, how do you utilize that to encourage a customer service mindset in your library? And when you're thinking about the extra mile, sometimes it requires you to have a chess-like, approach to it. If I answer this question, what are the next 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 questions that the person is going to ask? So let me address all of their future potential questions before they even ask it. All right, number 3 principle. Be empathetic. This is a very, very common UX principle. Be the other person. And this is a quote from Danny Meyer's excellent book, Setting the Table. If you're not familiar with Danny Meyer, he is a pretty famous restaurateur here in New York City. He has Union Square Cafe, he has Shake Shack, and basically he revolutionized restaurant hospitality in the 80s and 90s and really kind of set the standard for what you now get at a traditional restaurant experience. So he wrote a book called Setting the Table, and you might say to yourself, well, Talia, this is not a book about the user experience. This is about, a restaurant. And I will tell you this, it is actually the best book about conceptualizing the user experience that is in fact not about the user experience at all. It's in fact about hospitality. And if you read the book, you can just replace the word restaurant with library and replace the word hospitality with customer service, and it will read exactly the same, I promise you. So if there's anything you're going to read from this presentation, read Danny Meyer's book. So how are we, oh, fantastic. Switch here to HTTP mode. You know what, I'll just go to the next slide. So how are we, in fact, empathetic? Well, we are you. We are you. We are our own users. How are we our own users? We use our own tools just like you use our tools, exactly the same. And because we are you, we are on the same side. We want to be happy just like we want you to be happy. And just so you know, 50% of Springshare is our librarians. So we know what you're going through on a day-to-day basis, projects and wearing multiple hats, because we were librarians in academic or public library settings before as well. So how are we using our own tools? This is what this screenshot was going to share with you. First things first, we couldn't provide the customer service that we want to provide if we didn't use our own tools. So we use LibGuides as you would use LibGuides. We use it as our help site. So all of our help documentation are guides that we build, similar to if you're using LibGuides, you build research guides, subject guides, pathfinders, all of that stuff using LibGuides as well. And we use LibGuides CMS to group our guides to help differentiate them. So we have LibAnswers documentation in a LibAnswers group and LibGuides documentation in a LibGuides group. We use LibAnswers like you guys use LibAnswers. So all of our support, those 24,000 or 26,000 emails we answered last year, we answer those in LibAnswers, okay? So we utilize LibAnswers like you utilize LibAnswers to provide your virtual, Ask a Librarian service in Florida. We do the same. We answer, as I mentioned, about 700 emails a week, and we really utilize features in LibAnswers like macros. We use that to provide best consistent answers, and it really and we really dig into our statistics to help us identify trends, which helps to inform our help documentation. So that's how we utilize LibAnswers like you do for support and feature tracking. We use LibCal, our calendaring tool, to manage all of our online webinar-based training sessions. We also utilize it as our internal calendar We post things like Talia's in a webinar today. So we have our own staff activity monitored in an internal calendar. We run reports there weekly and yearly to see what are the trends with regards to webinar, what are the trends with regards to professional development, and with specifically as it pertains to training, if we notice that a session that we're offering on, the 10th has really, really low attendance, it helps to inform us, why does it have low attendance? Maybe we'll do a little bit better advertising for that. So it really helps to inform our outreach activities as well. We use Lib Analytics, which is our data gathering tool, to gather data about our activity. So yeah, I taught a webinar today. How many people are in attendance of that webinar? How long did it take? How long did it take me to prep for it? How did it go? What did I talk about? And then at the end of the week, end of the month, our head of training runs reports and is able to kind of determine trends with regard to our training statistics and a variety of other things as well. We use LibStaffer, which is our staffing tool, to actually staff our support desk. So who's on support, which shifts of the day, what are their duties during that shift, do they have a backup? We use terms called primary and secondary to monitor that, who's monitoring our phones, and so on and so forth. We also use it to swap shifts, put in time off requests so people won't try and schedule me when I'm on vacation. And it lets me run reports on the total number of hours this week I did support. So, and to wrap it all up, we use Lib Surveys, which is our survey form builder, as the form tool that we send out for user feedback. So every time you attend one of our training webinars, you're going to see this survey asking you to tell us what you thought about it. So it's our training feedback form. We see the feedback in real time, and all of us see it in real time. So it, once again, is a really high level of transparency. So if my colleague Michelle does a training webinar, I can see what the feedback was to her session. I can see it, and everybody can see it, which really encourages kind of a high level of support. So bottom line, we use our own tools as you would use our tools, and we use them as the pillars that support our customer service model. Another thing that we do to kind of be empathetic to our users is to ask them. I know that sounds kind of silly, but in our form, when you send us in a question, there's a form, we ask you what you're feeling. And these are some of the options. Are you curious, confused, excited, frustrated, zen, worried, panicked, or angry? So because we're a virtual company and we don't have a help desk that you can walk up, we don't know what you're feeling when you send us a question. Are you really, really totally freaking out, or are you just, you're playing around in lib answers and you have a cue, you're just curious. So your response to that question directly impacts our response. And people who are angry or frustrated or panicked get moved to the top of the queue. So we answer people who are in those states first. Because if you're full on panicking, you probably don't want to wait 2 hours to get an answer back. So you're probably asking yourself, well, if we did that, our patrons would game the system. And I will tell you, we thought that too. We thought, oh, everybody's going to select panicked and just to game the system so they can get a quick response back. And the fact is, we really haven't seen anybody game the system. That's the truth. So for us, it was worth it to offer this service and to kind of ask people, and their selection directly impacts how quickly they'll get responded to, but it also impacts the language that we use. So if I notice that somebody has wrote angry, I am not going to start off with a joke or even end with a joke. I will not be more lighthearted in the terminology that I utilize. So here are some tips for you to be empathetic or to think more empathetically. There's a great article by the Harvard Business Review on journey mapping. Basically, they outline that you should pick a single process that one of your patrons has to go through. And that process can be, how does a patron send in an email? And map out all the steps that a user must undertake to accomplish that task. When you map out all the steps, you're going to find pain points. And when you address those pain points, you are being more empathetic to your users as they go through the process of getting served. Another great way to be empathetic is to ask. So as I mentioned, uh, ask your users, how are they feeling? Do a focus group, add it to your online forums. And another thing, and this is a personal kind of tip, is use your library as a user. I was a librarian for 5 years at Johnson Wales University, and during that time, I was getting my second master's in operation systems uh, management from the University of Auckland in New Zealand. By the way, if anybody's ever been there, go All Blacks. They're playing for the Rugby World Cup right now. So while I was a librarian, I also was a student, and I had to write my graduate thesis, 150 pages long, and I was doing original research. And I thought I had it in the bag. I thought I had it made, that writing my thesis would be so easy because I was a librarian and I was going to know exactly where to go and which databases to utilize because I'm a librarian. And let me tell you, it wasn't. Being a user and being a graduate research student doing original research, being a librarian only helped me maybe 10%. So I was really able to feel the pain of what some of our users were feeling because I was a user and I was in their story. I was in their shoes, so to speak. My fourth principle is to start a dialogue. This is another quote from Danny Meyer, Setting the Table, and he says that service is a monologue where you decide that you want to do things. Hospitality is a dialogue. This requires listening and following up with a thoughtful and gracious response. So earlier I mentioned that everybody at Springshare does support. So let me kind of back that up. We call it SDD, and don't worry, this is not something that you need a shot of penicillin for. It stands for support-driven development. And basically, something like 90%, we don't actually like calculate it, but it's extraordinarily high. I would say 90% or higher of all of our feature requests come from you. Like probably even higher than that. So everything that we build at Springshare, almost everything we build, 9 out of 10 times, comes from you guys asking us to build it. And that support-driven development is really guided by the fact that everybody in the company does support. Therefore, no single Springshare person is ever divorced from the process. No one is more than one standard deviation away from the user, right? Nobody. Now, because everybody does support, everybody is always on active like listening mode. And because we're all actively listening, we don't really need to predict what our users want. We have a very strong vocal community and we pay attention to what you're saying. And when we are asking for feedback, we take care to close the feedback loop. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But basically, it's this concept that if you want your users to provide feedback, you need to respond. And it shows that you value them as stakeholders in their space. I used to work in an academic library, and there used to be this box that was outside of our office that said, submit your questions. And I never paid it much attention. And now I wonder, like, what happened when people put something in that box? Like, did we ever get back to them? What happened when they dropped that little slip of paper in? Like, did we actually call them up and say, hey, thanks for your feedback? Did we post it somewhere? I don't think we did. So we could have been better at closing the feedback. And the point of that is that you want them to feel valued as stakeholders in their space. This is their space, not your space. So you want them to feel valued as stakeholders in their space. And we used to do this. We used to, not anymore, just because we kept the sheer volume, is every single time somebody sent us a feature request, we would log the feature request and we would say who it came from. And then if that feature request was coded up and released into the wild, we would personally email every person and say, hey, that feature request you asked for 3 months ago, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, it came out. And here's where it is. And thank you so much for submitting it because it wouldn't be here without you. That personal email, people felt overjoyed at that kind of one-on-one customer service. And while we can't do that anymore because we have 87,000 LibGuides users and we would probably spend an entire week writing emails, we do a more multimodal reach that says, hey, this was what you asked us for and this is what we are releasing. And when you have support-driven development where everybody does support, it creates a level of accountability. We are all accountable to each other and accountable to the user. So some recommended tips for you with regards to starting a dialogue is to think about more active listening approaches. One of my favorite phrases that Slavin always says is, ask them what they want and we'll see what we can do. And that's kind of a Springshare phrase that we have adopted. We'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do, because we don't like to say no. And we're always, ask them what they want, we'll see what we can do, starting a dialogue. Take care to close the feedback loop. Get a system or tool in place that helps you manage feedback. As I mentioned, we use LibAnswers, and what we do is every single time any ticket comes in that is a feature request, we tag it with the word review, and we tag it with feature request. Every week, we have a dedicated features team that reviews all features and says, oh, this would be great, or, oh, you know, this sounds like a good idea, but it might be more complicated, and so on and so forth. And we review every single feature request that comes through. So we have a process for that feedback loop. And remember that you need to consider a multimodal reach. You know, we use blogs, we use our website, we use social media to kind of get the word out about closing the feedback loop. But definitely we are not where we want to be with regards to that. We want to get better. But for you, just remember that when somebody takes care to give you feedback, do a great job of kind of blanketing it out there so that everybody can say, oh, that person asked a question, they asked for more chairs in the library got more chairs, and they did a big announcement that, hey, based upon user feedback, we added more chairs. So maybe if I send my request in, maybe they'll listen to me too. Tip number 5, principle number 5 is be on the offense. So very, very common saying, the best defense is a good offense. And this is very true. And it's never more true than in today's social media age. And libraries are doing great stuff with social media, really kind of pushing the boundaries of, you know, interactions with the community. So one of the things that we do with the best way to be on the offenses is that we put on social media, we watch. Anytime anybody tweets or Facebook posts and they mention LibGuides or Springshare or LibAnswers or LibCal or building a guide or anything like that, we have watches on specific keywords. And so anytime anybody tweets with one of those keywords, we hear it. So this is about active listening. Once again, active listening. And why do we do that? It's because we want to see what people are saying. They might not necessarily want to say it to our faces, but they're just talking and we want to hear it. So this is an example. Somebody tweeted, bringing my coworkers up to speed on our new LibGuides layouts this week and next, #LibraryLife. They didn't necessarily tweet to us. I saw this. I'm one of the people on the social media team. I saw this, so I replied and I said, hey, have fun with LibGuides. Let us know if you need anything, smiley face. Normally, it could have just ended there, but it didn't. They actually replied back and said, hey, thanks, now that you ask, we do have a ton of questions. Can you help us? And I ended up addressing all of their questions on social media, on Twitter. And the best part is they didn't even have to ask. They weren't actually asking a question. And yet we provided really, really great customer service proactively and on the offense. Here's another example. So somebody tweeted, LibGuides, why do you haunt me? Why can't you be more user-friendly? #LibGuides, #librarian problems. So we saw that, and I was like, oh gosh, you know, what's going on? Maybe we can help. So I replied back to them, and I said, oh no, how can we help? You know, we're always open to feedback, criticism included, so we'd love to hear your comments. So to give you kind of a bit of a background, there were a lot more tweets that went back and forth, and basically it went all the way up to Slavin, and Slavin said, hey, tell them to email me with their feedback. I want to see it, and we'll respond to them directly. I will respond to them directly because I am open to making LibGuides as best as we possibly can. And we kept tweeting her, hey, did you email us? Because we didn't hear from her for like a day. We said, you know, did you send us that email? We're really waiting for your email. We'd love that email. And so she finally wrote back with this. Hi, I'll be honest, I was quite shocked when I had a tweet response yesterday. You were all super quick with responding, which I had no idea you would do in the first place. I was just venting. Who knew people listened? Thank you so much for being so responsive and involved. It is truly a mark of a great company. So the fact is she didn't actually have any feedback. She was just kind of confessing a little bit online. And we were so proactive in saying, hey, listen, you're angry. We're angry. We're you. We are on your side. Tell us what it is. And the fact is, she didn't really have any complaints, and it worked out beautifully. And she ended up tweeting and saying, how happy she was with the interaction. Another thing that we do on social media is we send a thank you message to every single person who follows us. And there's a reason for that. Think about on social media, particularly on Twitter, there are millions of companies that are out there on Twitter. And a person can only follow so many companies, and people are selective in who they pick and who they choose. And if they chose to follow you, you should take that as the highest compliment. They had their choice of other people to follow, and they didn't choose them. They chose to follow you. And because of that, we send them a personal thank you message. Sometimes it's, I kind of equate it to like sending a thank you card. So we send a direct thank you message to every single person who follows us. Okay. So if you're thinking about engaging on social media and you want to be more proactive, I strongly encourage you to think about some of these social media management tools. They're kind of like CMSs for social media. All of them are here really great. We in Springshare use Sprout Social that we like very much, although I heard that Slack, a new CMS tool, has, not CMS, like a staff intranet tool has a great social media integration that they just added. And all of these are I heard are great. It's really up to you. Pick your favorite: Sprout Social, Hootsuite, TweetDeck, Slack, all of the above. If you're going to be on social media, I strongly encourage you to write a social media mission statement and guidelines. This is not something that needs to be a manual. The social media mission statement that I wrote is 3 sentences, and our guidelines are half a page long. So it is not like a Bible, and it is not a manual. And it can't be, because social media is an ever-changing landscape, and you can't have like a play-by-play rule book. So here's just some of our social media policies. If they write to you, you take the time to write back. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So every single person who tweets directly to us or Facebooks directly to us, we always reply back, always. Never, ever fight fire with fire. You got to take it from, Taylor Swift or Tay-Tay. Haters going to hate, and you just got to shake it off. So that's what you have to do. Social media, it tends to be a landscape where people complain, and sometimes they're justified and sometimes they're not justified, but never get involved in a mud fight, because the only one who's going to come out looking bad is you. Never interfere unless they're mistaken. So even if there is kind of a mud fight going on, and I notice that someone is blatantly posting inaccuracies or incorrect, that's just going to foster misinformation, then we might get involved, only if we think that we're going to get more good out of than negativity. And don't ever jump into the middle of a conversation that's occurring unless you're going to bring value. So people might be talking about you in a positive or negative manner, but don't ever jump in unless you're bringing value. For example, I had somebody who just tweeted something like, playing around with LibGuides templates, happy Monday. So I replied back and said, hey, in case you didn't know, here's a help guide on LibGuides templates, and here's, if you have any questions, here's how you can contact us, and here's a training session that we have just on templates if you'd like to get more familiar with it. And so what ended up happening was that person who wasn't a Twitter follower ended up following us, and they did need help, and we got them the help that they needed. So I could have just written back and said, hey, good luck with templates, but I didn't. You got to bring the value to the conversation. And then, of course, avoid self-promotion. I will tell you that of all the posts that we post, the ones that perform the best are ones that where we highlight the work of others, where we are not just talking about ourselves. And libraries tend to get a little bit into that mindset where they're like, hey, we got a new database. Let's tell everybody about our new database. Hey, we ordered these new books. Let's tell everybody about our new books. And that's really, really incredible and helpful information. But it can border online just being like a banner and an ad that you're kind of just pushing out there all the time. The posts that we have that do the best are the ones where we highlight the work of others. And it's kind of like the rule of reciprocity. The more love that you distribute, the more that you're going to get back. So some recommended tips for being on the offense: engage users wherever and whenever you can. So as I mentioned, we're a virtual company. We don't have physical spaces, but you do. You do have physical spaces. And so not only can you engage users online and social media, you can also engage users in your physical space. One of the best methods that I heard of is the Pottery Barn method, if you're familiar with it, and it's the rule of three. Basically, within the first minute that a client enters a Pottery Barn store, they have to be welcomed. Thank you for coming to Pottery Barn. Let us know if you need anything. Within the first, I think, 10 minutes, they have to be approached and say, do you have any questions? Are you looking for something specific? And then upon exiting, every single person is thanked for coming into Pottery Barn today. Thank you for stopping by Pottery Barn. We hope to see you again soon. So it's the rule of three. Every patron gets a welcome, a do you need help, and a thank you for visiting. So I suggest that you think about engaging users in your physical space, asking if they need help. Did you find anything? You look confused. How can I help you? And if that sounds a little bit overwhelming, or you just don't have the amount of staff to be able to do that, there's always a bottom-up approach. If you're an academic library, you can involve your students or your volunteers to walk around and do it. Sometimes students might be more applicable to get help from other students. It's kind of like that peer learning approach. They might be more conducive to being taught from another student. And I strongly recommend that if you don't already, to get on social media and to have a strategic plan about it. All right, my sixth principle for UX and customer service is to think about building communities and to think about how you can build communities in your library. So here's another quote. As you can probably see, there's a lot of quotes from Danny Meyer. You really should read this book. Is take a genuine interest in other human beings and allow them to share their story. This creates a sense of daily community that feeds into the overall larger community. So all of you are probably extremely familiar with the brand Starbucks. Now, Starbucks brand is not actually coffee. And there have been many taste tests done, lots of studies, and they in fact don't have the best coffee. Their success is not attributable to their spectacular coffee or their spectacular food. Their brand is not about coffee at all. In fact, their brand is communities. And when people walk into their Starbucks, they feel like they're walking into their own local coffee shop branded just for them. This is my coffee shop. This is Talia's coffee shop. And it feels like it's my community space. So they're not selling coffee. They're selling a feeling of community. And it's a great kind of concept to think about from the library perspective. So how do we do that here at Springshare? How do we build communities even daily? That kind of that act of building a daily community that fosters and creates the overall larger Springshare community. How do we do that? So this was an email that Slavin sent to us October 5th, 2012, so 3 years ago. He sent this email, and I'll kind of jump to the relevant highlighted part. So he said, I'd like to ask every one of you to send a couple of personal notes to different clients every week and build these types of solid, long-term relationships with our community members. A little personal touch goes a long way towards creating long-term. So here's an example of something that happened over the summer. One of our clients, I heard through just being following them on Twitter. So, they became a client. They tweeted to us, saw their Twitter posts, and they posted something about their dad having a stroke and how upset they were and how they had to leave work early today to go and see their dad. So I sent them a personal email from my own account, and I said, "How are you doing?" And I said, "I heard your dad had a stroke. Is there anything I can do? I'm so sorry, sending you my condolences." And this was the reply ever. By the way, I frequently utilize my nickname, which is Tals, to kind of reduce reduce boundaries and to be more personable. So the reply back was, "You are the sweetest ever, Tals. Yes, my poor dad had a stroke, but now I can say that things could have been a lot worse. He is now out of the hospital, installed at Kessler Rehab, and getting the physical and speech therapies that he needs. Much love and gratitude for your friendship." Now, one of the things I just want to point out is that this is a client, somebody who's using our tools, feeling that she is friends with me, and not just friends with me, friends with Springshare. And feeling gratitude for that interaction. And the way they feel that is that we are a family, and people feel as if they are part of our family. They don't feel like they are users of Springshare tools. They feel like they are part of the Springshare family. They feel like they are part of our community. Kind of similar to when you guys go to Trader Joe's. So Trader Joe's, yes, amazing food, organic, low cost, low price, and that's definitely part of their brand. But every time I walk into my local Trader Joe's, I feel like I'm walking into somebody's kitchen, and they're all gathered around having a blast, and they look over and they're like, "Hey, Talia, come on over. Oh, we're so happy to see you. You're the best." And they put an art, like, it's that feeling that you've just walked into your best friend's house and they're handing you a glass of wine and a mini meatball, and they're just ecstatic to see you. That's that feeling that Trader Joe's fosters, this feeling of that I am part of the Trader Joe's family, that they are happy to see me, that they're excited about my feedback, and they want me there. So here are some recommended tips for you, and it's actually just one tip. My tip is take 10 minutes every day and reach out to 3 people. And by reaching out, I mean not promoting library resources, not fostering, "Hey, did you hear about the latest this, and that?" It's more like, "Hey, how are you? I heard that you came by the library last week. You picked up a couple of books. So great. Enjoy reading them and hope to see you again soon." So more about just fostering a personal relationship with 3 people every day. If you do 10 minutes, send out three emails to 3 people. In a year, that will be 780 people that you will have reached out to create a sense of affiliation and community. If 10 people do that in your library, that's 7,800 people you will have reached out to foster that feeling of community and feeling of family. All right, something that you probably weren't expecting with regards to thinking about customer service and putting the user in your customer service model, how humor is very powerful. So this is a quote from Jerry Seinfeld. "Nobody cares who it comes from or where it's coming from. If someone comes along and they're really funny, it's always welcome." So one of the things we try to do here at Springshare is we try to be funny. Slavin is always at the top of the list in what he does. And what we want is we want to make you guys smile. Even for just a little bit in a day, we want to try and make you smile. So a couple of years ago, we did a huge April Fool's joke where we pretended to launch a new product called Lib Stapler, which was the smart library for staplers. It had built-in RFID, it collected statistics, it had security protocols that if somebody tried to staple more than 30 pages together, it would automatically lock down. It was pretty funny. The whole Springshare company got on board. We all took pictures with our staplers. We did a huge, we pushed it out on Twitter, and it went really viral. It was really funny. So Marie, you heard about it too. So many people asked me about when it would be available. Yes, it was quite popular. It was really funny, and we planned for it for a while. We knew we wanted to do something funny. We dedicated staff time to it. This was actually like we built a web page for it, and we put it out there. Another thing that we used to do on Twitter, and I want to bring it back, but just haven't really thought about it is we used to do this thing called hashtag Springy Thoughts, which was kind of our play on Deep Thoughts by Jack Handy. So like once a week we would post out these like I thought they were pretty funny, springy thoughts. So one of them was like, one thing children of librarians have to be taught early on is to locate a bathroom without asking. Hashtag springy thoughts. You'll notice that we're not promoting anything. We're not talking about ourselves at all. We're not pushing out anything. We just wanted to make a laugh. We wanted to make people laugh. And they were, in most part, favorited and retweeted, and of course that helps your branding. So some recommended tips with regards to being, using humor as a way in your customer service model. So humor creates connections, right? Humor creates connections, which makes customers feel they're more intimately connected with you. It fosters a feeling of intimacy, which is more about this dialogue. It connects with building relationships and building a sense of community. You see how all of these things play in together. And customer intimacy builds and creates apostles. And what do apostles do? They spread your word, right? So humor is also customer intimacy is also one of the least expensive things that you can do. It really doesn't cost you anything to utilize humor in your day-to-day interactions. You're not reinstalling 20 new computers. You're not rebuilding an entire library that costs millions of dollars. Humor is the least expensive option, and it creates the strongest rewards. To kind of and also when you're thinking about humor, pick up what they're throwing down and take their lead. So to kind of, I'll give you a couple examples what I mean by that. So not too long ago, I saw a library on Twitter post about these new safety pods that they had installed in the library. And I was really curious because they look like these round eggs, these big white eggs. And I thought that they were like, if I felt like I was being physically threatened, I could run into the pod and like lock it behind me. But no, it actually is a safe space where people can do research and not feel like other people are looking at them, particularly if they're doing research of things that they might be uncomfortable in public. So they were called safety pods. So pretty cool. I thought it was an awesome initiative at the library, and they were advertising it out on social media. So one of their students replied back and said, "Safety pods, oh no, I'm so scared. Why should I, and they made a joke about it. The student was kind of just making a joke. And I thought, this is a perfect opportunity for the library to joke back and to say, run, don't walk to your closest safety pod. The thing is behind you. It's coming for you. Voldemort is whispering down your neck. They could have gone any different way about it, and they could have taken the lead, and they didn't. They wrote back with this really, really formal language that said something like, if you feel unsafe in the university's libraries, please consult with safety and security. They'll want to contact you about filling out a form, and we take security very seriously. We want to make sure that you do not feel threatened. It was obviously a joke that the student was putting out on Twitter, and they replied back with this really incredibly formalized and almost intimidating language. That student never commented again. So if somebody's being funny with you, pick it up, throw it right back, and take their lead. Don't be afraid to strategize moments of humor. Do you think comedians get up on stage and riff off the top of their head? No, they practice their sets over and over and over again. They practice so much that it seems like it's, riffing it, but they're not. So don't be afraid to strategize moments of humor and take the time. April Fool's Day is 6 months away. Plenty of time to sit down and come up with something really funny. There's International Talk Like a Pirate Day. Lots of things. There was a Cat Day a couple days ago, International Cat Celebration Day. Lots of things that you can utilize to kind of strategize moments of humor. And my last tip is to read the room. That's why it's so important to be empathetic. There's nothing worse when somebody's really, really angry with you and you crack a joke. They are not going to laugh, I promise you. And personally, this is a fail that we learned, is that we used to have a 403 error message. Like if you did something and it didn't work, you'd get a 403 message. And it used to be funny. And then we thought to ourselves, you know what, when somebody's trying to accomplish something and they get an error message, probably not great that we've cracked a joke, they're probably not super excited about that. That's not the best place to be cracking a joke. So we stopped doing that. We have more formalized 403 messages. So my most important tip with regard to using humor is to read the room and make sure you're planning that space right. I know we're coming up on time, so we're on my last principle here. My last principle is actually a really, really common UX principle, but I've modified it slightly. The really, really common principle is be human, and I've modified it to be a good human, okay? Be approachable, be trustworthy, be transparent. So what does it mean to be human, and what do we do here at Springshare? We try our best we say no to saying no. And the best part about kind of removing no as an answer from your vocabulary is that it opens your brain up to creative solutions and options. It's like doing Sudoku for your brain. When you can't say no, you gotta think of another way. And even if you can't get them 100% of the way there, even if you only get them 1% of the way there, that's still better than 0%. And a no equals 0%. So sometimes getting them just a little bit to what they want is better than no percent of getting to what they want. And there's almost always a workaround, almost always. There have been so very few instances where I haven't said, well, you could do it this way, or you could do it that way, or have you thought about this way, or maybe you're just, think about it in this way, and they go, oh, thanks, I hadn't thought of that, and they're much happier because we didn't just say no. What else is it about being a good human? It's about being speedy. People equate speed with consideration. So here's an email that we received from a client, and they replied back with, okay, only 7 minutes went by between my sending the email and receiving yours. The customer service at Springshare is so awesome, it borders on creepy. Thank you so much. So when we're talking about speed equal consideration, it equals that you care. And if you need more time, I know a lot of people can't answer right away or get the answer in 7 minutes. You don't have to. Just respond right away and say, hey, I got your email. It's going to take me a few minutes to research this or a couple of hours, but I will get back to you right away. And the best kind of example of this is everybody's probably pretty familiar with that Allstate commercial where they're these little kids and they're on the phone and they're waiting to report their accident claim, and the kid is it's really funny, and the kid, they're listening and they hear, you're a valued customer. We appreciate you so much. Your hold time is 3 hours and 20 minutes. And the kid takes the phone and they smash it to the ground, because you can't tell somebody that you value them and then say, we're going to get back to you in a day and a half, or we're going to get back to you in 4 days, because they don't feel valued. They don't feel like you're empathizing with them. They don't feel like they're part of your family or your community. So while I will not tell you to be creepy, I will tell you to exceed expectations wherever you can. Now, another thing about being a good human is to address mistakes and how to address mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. I've probably made about 8 of them in this presentation alone. Everybody makes mistakes, and Danny Meyer has a really great recommended path for addressing mistakes. So he recommends being aware, acknowledging that a mistake occurred, apologizing for that mistake, take action to fix the mistake, and provide additional generosity. To give you an example, I was at a conference earlier this year. Actually, it was CIL. It was the day before my presentation at CIL. We went to a restaurant there, had a wonderful meal. Food was incredible. At the very end, our waiter spilled an entire milkshake that wasn't even our milkshake. It was for another table. Spilled it on my coworker's lap. Right on his pants, all the way through, went all the way to his socks, and it was in his shoes. My coworker was very upset, as you can imagine, and not only did they, send over like an entire team to clean it, they moved us to another table. They apologized profusely. We had several restaurant managers come out and apologize profusely, but their additional generosity was they comped the whole meal. The whole entire meal we did not have to pay for that. And so I will be going back to that restaurant. What could have ended up as a terrible situation, and I could have walked out of there and saying, I will never visit this restaurant again. I and my boss who had my coworker who had the milkshake spilled on him, we will be going back because we were so impressed with how they dealt with this very human mistake of making a mistake. One of the tips that I always give for addressing mistakes is try not to get defensive, especially when someone can be attacking you or your library. It's very easy to be defensive. Try not to get defensive. Actively listen and acknowledge their feelings when they are talking to you about a mistake that they feel that they have suffered from. It shows that you're being empathetic, once again, tying into that principle. And the best way to handle those angry people is to let them know that you're on their side. And some people are better at handling angry customers better than others. It's just a fact. Some people are. I call them patron whisperers. So if you have somebody on your staff who's a patron whisperer, use them. You know, you're a part of a team, you're a family, and you're all working together to make that patron happy. And if you need to tag in some of your coworkers, so be it. You know, it's all about working together. And the last thing I want to point out about being a good human is anybody familiar with this picture? Anybody know what this picture is? Of? Anybody? Well, I'll tell you, it's the Boston Marathon bombing. Okay, so this is a picture from the Boston Marathon bombing, and I'll give you a quick recap of what happened. So that day, if you recall, there were multiple reports of other bombs that were going off in Boston. There was a lot of panic, a lot of misinformation. There was reports that a bomb went off in the Boston Public Library. And the news was reporting that there was a secondary attack in the Boston Public Library. It turns out it wasn't. It was just a fire, if you recall. And it wasn't even that day. It was like a fire the day before. So the news media really got that wrong. Well, we were all watching the news here at Springshare, and we heard that there was an attack at the Boston Public Library. And the Boston Public Library is one of our clients. They utilize LibGuides at the Boston Public Library. And so my colleague Gina called them repeatedly and left messages and was like, hey, we heard, everybody okay there? Please let us know. We're so worried about you. Then at the next conference that we were at, I think it was ALA, because it was right around that time, I think it was ALA, that librarian that we had been calling over and over again ran over to Gina, picked her up, kissed her, hugged her, and was like overwhelmed and said, you were the only vendor that the Boston Public Library deals with that called us to see if we were okay. So being a good human is about showing your soul. And as Danny Meyer says, service without a soul is utterly forgettable. And you guys work in physical spaces, and you get to know your patrons and see your patrons on a day-to-day basis. And it's always, it never hurts to, to show your soul to your clients, to your users. So here are some tips for being a good human. Try to avoid saying no. There's always a way, and think of it as opportunities for creative thinking. Come up with a turnaround time threshold and hold staff to it. If you say you're going to get back to clients or patrons within 60 minutes when you're open, hold everybody accountable to that standard. Admit mistakes and make them right, and I think libraries are particularly skilled at this. Let's say you double booked a meeting space or a study room and it was an accident of the staffer. Yeah, apologize and say, we're so sorry we double booked, but your booking is not valid and your booking is valid, and by the way, to make up for our mistakes, we're going to give you 500 free copies at the copy machine, or we're going to give you an extra hour to book the study room, even though our policy is only 2 hours. So you're in a particularly good position to provide that additional generosity, even if it's just something little like waiving a fine or extending their reservation, or giving them free photocopies or free access to the 3D printer for a little while. And of course, show your soul when you can. You do see homesick students, and you see kids that are walking around, and you're like, hey, I know you're from Philly. By the way, there's this Philly cheese shop place right around the corner. It's really, really good. Let me show you where it is. And that homesick kid can now get his favorite food, a Philly cheesesteak. All right, so those are my 8 Springshare customer service principles. Be strategic, be empathetic, start a dialogue, go the extra mile, be on the offense. Originally, I had that as be offensive, and then I thought that could go either way, so I changed it to be on the offense. Don't be offensive. Build communities, use humor, and be a good human. Do we have any questions? I know we're about 5 minutes over than the allocated time. So I will leave it up to Vicki if she wants to open up the floor for questions. If you have a question and you are kind of formulating it, please feel free to email me. That's my email address on the screen. Please follow us on Twitter and tweet to us if you don't already, and on Facebook as well. Thank you, Marie. I'm so happy to be here. I love it. And I'm so looking forward to chatting with you. Also, at the end of my presentation are all of the references to articles. There are 2 slides of them. I strongly recommend you check them out. So I'm going to be sending this presentation to Vicki, who will be emailing it out to all of you. So you can check out those references if you'd like. All right. Fantastic. I don't think we have any questions. Vicki? Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Joyce. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Vicki. All right, Vicki, what do? Do I hang around?